Welcome back to the Diary of a CTO podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by this week's guest, Miguel Marin Vermelho, CTO of Flown. Miguel, how are you doing today?
Very good, guy. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Very well indeed, thank you. So Miguel, great to have you here today. You are a engineer, product thinker. You're someone who's worn, I think, just about every hat in a lean startup that's going. And really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about your journey, as well as a bit more about Flown. So Flown seems to be a super interesting startup, building a platform to encourage deep work in a remote setting. And just really interested to hear a little bit more about your work that you're doing there. But let's start with you, if we can. Tell us a bit about yourself, your career into tech leadership, and I guess from the early days to where we are today.
Yeah, so I guess is the word in English, like a third culture kid. I guess that's me. I grew up. Well, I was born in Luxembourg to Portuguese and Spanish parents. I went to school there in Portuguese, weirdly, and I studied there until I was 17 and moved to the UK because my English was rubbish, and I also wanted to get.
Well, you never know.
So I moved to London and I've been stuck here ever since. So I'm originally a biologist, really. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a scientist when I was younger. Partially because I did a really lovely internship in one of the labs there researching cancer, which was like super interesting. And then I thought, oh God, this is what I want to do. And it got to year 2 of university, and funnily enough, the people I surrounded myself with, and we'll get to that later on, we're also not into so much the research part of things. So I kind of gravitated, I did an internship there and another place in Switzerland, and decided that was not the work for me, working in a lab. I think the point that it really dawned on me was like, I had to go split some cells on a Saturday, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. And then from there, I gravitated a little bit towards the topics I was most interested in biology, so mostly like neuroscience stuff, and a little bit into Python, and Python for biological like measurements and stuff.
Okay.
That's how I got into coding. Funnily enough, my dad was always in IT, but we never kind of got into that. He never forced anything on me, which was great. So I always kind of was very free to choose, which I'm very grateful for. And then I realized that I didn't want to do biology anymore. I finished my degree, and then I was at UCL at the time, and then UCL also offered a master's for non-computer science graduates to fast track their career into computer science. So that's how I got into tech. I'd say we learned a lot of stuff that I never ever used ever again.
Often the way at university, isn't it?
Yes. I think you learn a lot about how to work, and it's more about meeting people and making friends and that kind of stuff. Hopefully, and then obviously if you want to stay in academia, that's a whole other chat we can have. But then I decided to go that track, and after I finished my degree, again, it's all kind of luck of where you go. I ended up in a project so my final year project was around working with HoloLens at the time.
Cool.
And building like a Power BI visualization. So Power BI is the BI tool from Microsoft. And I just happened to go on to the Angular and sort of JavaScript web dev stack as a result of that. And then I thought, I enjoy this. I'm enjoying building these things. Let me double down on that. So I think I spent about after I finished my degree, my master's, about 3 months or so, just like studying on my own, doing like online courses. Okay. And then I got my first job in a startup as like a front-end dev, startup called Ubic, who sit there. It's a French startup, but they have a big office here in London. And started there in like January after I finished. So September, got to January. And I worked there for, I don't know how long anymore. I forget. So I started there. It was really nice. Like my first opportunity, starting to learn all the tricks and, working closely with one of the 3 founders who was sort of the head of the front end team. And from there I got into DevOps because I enjoyed that. And it was quite nice at some point from there. And then eventually, I wanted to do more full stack stuff, and COVID hit and we all went home, and I decided to move somewhere else. And I did a brief stint at a recruitment company called Tempo, which I remember fondly. It was kind of funny because I never met anyone until way later, after I was already working at Flown, that I went to join them at a pub one day, and that was like the only like in-person interaction with this entire team. Wow. And then I basically I was very happy at Tempo and not really looking for anything, and I had just read Deep Work. This is like how coincidences go. And then I get a message from the CTO at the time, this guy called Bernie. Was a very interesting guy, by the way. I think it's another guest you should definitely have at some point. He's done a lot of fractionary CTO type things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get a message from him like, hey, we're, I think it was from a recruiter, I can't remember, but it was around, hey, we're a startup in the deep work space. And I was like, yo, this is weird. Like, I just read this book. So I was like, let me give him a shot and speak to them. And then I spoke to Bernie, and turns out he has the exact same career path as me. So biology, didn't like it, went into tech. So that's kind of, we hit it off. We got along really well. And then, eventually I got my job at Flown as a basically full stack engineer. And then, by inertia, I guess over time, I became like a lead dev and eventually the CTO, as I remained in the team and other people moved on to other projects, or just left. And yeah, now I'm here basically. So this
Right here, right now, talking
it's
to me.
been it's been like now. Well, I started the CTO role as such in January, and yeah, but it was from before already that I was doing what we call now, I guess, product engineering. So it's a little bit of product work. It's very cowboy style. Some of the stuff we do is like there's no QA, there's no designer. Like we do it all ourselves, and we do the products as well and the code. So it's an interesting sort of more of a CTO of a very small team. So I'm not your classic, manager of many people and many engineering teams. I have a team right now of one person 2 days a week, and then it's me. So it's more like still an individual contributor, very much in that sense of the CTO archetype, so to speak.
Do you feel you've mentally changed the way you approach the job day to day? Now you are CTO, in terms of the way you look at things, in terms of the product on the platform.
Yes, but I don't. Well, I think the answer is like it's not as a result of the change in role as much. I feel like yes, it's given me a bit of freedom to now be the one to make all the mistakes. But I would say it's like also working at Flown and getting into flow states more often has changed a lot in my mental health and in my mind as a whole. And in that sense, like I would say definitely has been a change in mindset, in the things I can do, the things I can't, and the things I need to watch out for. I was lucky to get like tickets to a quite good CTO conference recently. I learned lots there about the most refreshing thing I would say is like realizing that you hear the title CTO and you think it's like a really scary, and these people like I've got it all figured out and they know exactly what they're doing. And then I got there and he was like, actually, everybody's just as lost as I am, pretty much. So
Yeah.
this is cool. Like, and it felt like kind of nice to speak to people and share experiences and realize, at sort of all levels, there's always going to be your hotshot that knows loads of things, and that's great. But there's loads of people in between that have these senior roles or have fallen into them or have created their company and they're like in this space and have no idea sort of where to go. Well, they know their tech obviously and stuff, but no, there's a lot more to that. So I learned a lot there, and that did change my perspective a little bit on how to approach the work and so on. And then, you kind of, everything is changing with AI. I mean, that's another whole topic we can get into.
I'm sure at some point we'll delve into that.
Hopefully that's a good enough, concise answer.
Yeah, very much so. That's cool. Thanks very much. I mean, it seems like you've been attracted to earlier stage businesses throughout your career to date, sort of startup kind of companies. What is it about the startup environment that you enjoy?
Yeah, so one, I'm a bit of a contrarian. I don't see myself in like a big time office job, to be honest. Then also what I like about the startup is literally that wearing different hats. I love to do different things. I get bored quite easily, so doing different things is the best way to keep me busy. So in every startup I've worked, I've done random stuff. I mean, even I remember for Ubik once I had to do like a sales call to Spain and Portugal, which was like the most random thing I did as a developer there. And now, Flown, I've done all sorts of different things, like from the QA, thinking about the team, thinking about growth, reaching out to get some investment for some people. Like it's been a little bit mixed, and I enjoy that, wearing different hats. And every day is slightly different, and you kind of it's just flexible as well, the startup life. And I've enjoyed it, just that small environment where you grow, like building things from scratch. I've had like a couple of ventures that have failed, I've tried to build myself or with some friends. And I just enjoy that, basically the trial and error, the whole product thinking and development. I feel like you learn a lot by trying to do loads of things yourself. There's always that risk of, jack of all trades, but master of none. But I think generally there's something to be said nowadays for being a generalist and stuff. And I think startup does give you that. And you can always, go to the things, do you like design more? You can go a little bit more that way. Do you like backend more? You can go a little bit more that way. And because often you'll be understaffed and under-resourced, there's that space for you to do multiple things. Then you also have to be careful with suddenly someone dumping like 10 roles on you that you can't handle anymore.
Very much so, yeah. I think we spoke about this before, but actually really keen today to get your view on, not only because of the industry or the domain, I guess, that Flown is in, but that sort of juxtaposition between productivity deep work, and then also overall life fulfillment and reward, I guess, in terms of how you feel about your job, and I guess levels of physical and mental health as a result of that, right? So yeah, I suppose let's talk a little bit about flow, and then we can sort of maybe put on that thread a bit more and talk about some of those other sort of societal factors. But tell us a bit about flow in your words.
Yeah, so I mean, the Flow one, when I joined, was a bit of a different company, because it was kind of like, the idea was there was a part of the Flown that we're now, and there was a part which was called Flown Away, which was an interesting like sort of business, but it was never going to take off in COVID because of the lockdown. But it was kind of like, imagine Airbnbs, but like for work and for spaces that were curated to go and do deep work. So that was a very interesting idea when I first joined. Unfortunately, we had to kind of let that side of the business go because it was not viable financially. And now Flown has become like what we like to call it a communal focus platform, but that doesn't mean much to people. So it's kind of like, that feeling of, do you ever go to cafes and work alongside others, or do you go to a library and work alongside others? Most people have probably had this experience, or even when you just work, side by side with a friend. It's the same idea, but you're doing it online with strangers that eventually become people you obviously get to know. So Flown is that. We're like a platform that provides these spaces, and our idea is to bring, to improve like the sort of the productivity narrative, to kind of bring people into states of flow more often. Because if you've ever experienced a state of flow, which I hope for most that you have, it feels really good, and you feel achieved about what you're doing. And the state of flow can be, if you're a musician, which I'm not, but musicians experience this very naturally, I think. But even in sports, you can have this, and obviously, when it comes to your work, it's, I think, increasingly more important, because our attention is constantly getting taken away for different things. So what we provide is a space and a platform for people to do their best work and feel good doing it. And part of that is also, there's the productivity angle of focusing, but part of productivity is also the angle of, what we call recharge, which is take good breaks. Like that can be, I don't know, I'll give you examples of things I do. We have sessions which are takeoff, which in the morning you go in, you spend like with a guided facilitator 5 minutes doing some sort of meditation, then you journal for another 5, and then you go off and break out into a room with other users and discuss what are your intentions for the day. Or like a journaling session, like you get a topic and you write about it, or breath work or whatever it is. But just something, so embedding into your philosophy and your workday, something that's, it's kind of the work hard, play hard, but I don't really like that too much, because it's not playing hard necessarily. Like wandering out for a walk is not playing hard, but it's nice. It's a creative break, so to speak. And basically what I've found for myself is, and what I've heard from users and other people that use the platform is, they feel really achieved when they do focus, and then when they go off and recharge, that stimulates your creativity massively, because you're letting your brain, your brain is doing work in the background all the time. So when you go off, it's whatever problem you've been thinking about or musing about is going to be like there somewhere, and you might unlock an idea. It's like that classic being in the shower and you have that light bulb moment. So that's kind of what we do if we provide these spaces for people. And ultimately, I mean, there's some science behind that. 3 main things I would say. So one is what you call the Hawthorne effect, which is you will perform better by virtue of being observed. So when you're in this call, you feel like you've been observed. Maybe you aren't even, but you have this feeling that you are. And there was an experiment, I can't remember the details of the scientists, but that they did in a factory at some point to prove this. The workers had really good performance during the experiment, and as soon as it was over, the performance went back down immediately. So I need to find that. There's definitely a reference there. Then the second thing, and that goes back to what I mentioned initially around, the people you surround yourself with. So there's a thing called mirror neurons in your brain. The easier way for people to understand it is, when you yawn, I yawn, you yawn, that's a mirror neuron firing in your brain. And what it means is you tend to copy things that other people around you do. So there's, the famous saying of you become the average of the 5 people you hang out the most with.
Yeah.
Body doubling, which is effectively what you're doing in Flown, is backed by that science. So mirror neurons, because I'm doing the same as you're doing, I'm automatically more focused. And the last, very important to some people, less important to me personally, is being intentional about what you're doing. Like I always have loads of things to do, so I always know what I'm doing. But being intentional about this hour, I am going to work on this and this thing only, helps you basically focus and get into a state of flow more easily. And ideally, from what I found, if you really want to make breakthroughs, you can do any type of task, obviously, but for a breakthrough, you want to find that task that's just at the edge of what you can do. Not too easy, but also not impossible. I'm not let's say figuring out nuclear fusion. But basically, yeah, finding something right in between where you can get into state of flow and it'll be stimulating and you know what the next sort of task is. So that's slightly long, but hopefully good enough summary of what we do.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks for that. Really, really interesting concept. I mean, genuinely a very unique concept. I've not really heard anything similar like it in the market. And what I love about it, I mean, obviously I can see the almost infinite potential in that kind of platform, and to be able to increase productivity and states of flow in a remote setting, so well, genius really. But
there's something there that as well about, which I didn't mention, about the remote setting, is like it also helps. We found this with people who are remote workers. It also helps people have and foster this like sense of community and battle loneliness a little bit,
yeah,
because as a remote worker, you'll tend to be quite, lonely. It depends. Like, some days for me, it's just me. Like, my colleague is not on. It's just me on the tech side, and it's nice to go and see other people. Basically,
Yeah.
it's not a live thing. It's different from the in person.
Yeah.
And we've run some in person sessions at some point, but yes, there's that part as well of community and combating loneliness as well, which is an interesting angle to the product as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find so far in the people that the product is kind of resonating with most, do you find there's a particular type of person insofar as maybe the domain they work in, the role they do, or kind of innate characteristics and attributes of that particular person that sort of resonates mostly with the Flame platform?
Yes, so I think there's like two major types, probably more actually. But the two main things that come to mind is people who work remote and sort of like lone business owners or small time business owners that have their own thing. And some of these people you do see actually three. We'll go back to that. Some of these people they see like return like on investment of using Flown. Incidentally, we want to build an ROI calculator for people. Actually, that's been in the works for a bit. But they see a return on investment because they use the platform and then they get more work done, which means a better outcome for their own business. So there's these remote solopreneurs, I guess you can call them.
Yeah.
Students, in particular, PhDs have been, we've had people that have completed entire PhDs just using Flown. People who are, writers as well, who've like written books using Flown. Is a very interesting one. And then there's a lot of neurodivergent folk. So we're talking people with ADHD and some other ADHD mainly, but other neurodivergencies as well that come to the platform and find that, I've spoken to some of these users and they go from doing an hour of work to doing 3 hours of work or 4 hours of work, which is, maybe for someone who's really productive feels like, oh, that's not important. But it's like, you are changing this person's life, like slowly and steadily, because it is huge for them. It's like, we're talking over double of what you used to produce, right? And, I'm pulling these figures out of conversations, not like anything that we've actually done as a study, but there is good feedback amongst people with neurodivergencies. Like, someone in our team came up with the word neurospicy, which I think is pretty cool. It makes it more, it makes it more of an issue and more of a thing, like, to celebrate more so than, to shun people that you have this particular issue, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of the demographic a little bit, I would say. And then, like, I would put myself in the box of people who just want to be more productive. I wouldn't say we have loads of those people, because I find, and I used to be like that, people who are really productive, you'll find are often very proud about their work and the way they work. They're unwilling to change. All I have to say is I produce way more working this way than ever before. And also I get way more time back for myself. So I will say I work less hours, but produce more work in the same amount of hours. And then just feel great. Like, sometimes it doesn't feel like work to me. I'm giving an example. There's so many exciting things happening now. I want to go on holiday next week, and I'm almost like, gosh, I kind of want to stay and build this stuff. Like, but yeah, I will be going on my holiday, obviously, and turning off Slack and all the good stuff that you have on startups that's pinging all the time.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I guess we'll talk a bit about that in a minute, about the work-life balance and your your appetite to work in a certain way, because I think we've spoken about that before, where we definitely resonate on in terms of how we see that versus the corporate world versus the startup world. But no, it just seems like a super cool platform, and just speaking firsthand from being, I guess, a founder of a business where I was very early on, on my own, pretty much all day, every day. It can be quite a lonely place at the end of the day. I mean, it's nice to have that control, have that autonomy. That I totally agree with you, and I've witnessed this myself, where I'm sat. I will very often have left the house to go and sit in my local coffee shop, just to be surrounded by people, and it does boost that state of flow. And I think it's a really important distinction to make, but a platform that is able to actually increase the state of flow versus increase the amount of time you have to spend working is, you know, a massive kind of value add, right? And I guess your point about people using the platform, if people didn't see their levels of productivity or the output improve, then they wouldn't use it, right? So, you know, I guess the proof's in the pudding, isn't it, to that degree?
Yeah, so I'd say we have like a lot of like super fans, like people who have done, I don't even know, like I think there's someone who's done like over 4,000 sessions with us. I mean, I've done quite a few. I've done over 1,000 myself. But yeah, I think there's a like, you know, I don't want to get too philosophical, but in the states of flow, that's like your ultimate way of being present. And in your life, you want to be in this state as much as possible. Basically,
Yeah.
that's what I would say without getting too deep into that.
Mm.
So, and there is that feel good feeling at the end of it, because, you know, and not every session, don't get me wrong, not every session is a cracker that you've smashed it and you've done all your work. It's never going to be like that, right? It's not eternal bliss that we're selling here, but it's like, it's an improvement on what you have.
Yeah.
It's better on what you had before, hopefully. And, you know, getting into these states, I think from my personal, at least my personal experience, I would highly recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that, you know, resonated with me when you were talking there about the neurodiversity element of, you know, it's seemingly resonating with a certain cohort of people, you know, that are neurodiverse. And I think that's a really interesting thing in itself, because I guess these kind of applicable real world platforms that, you know, work in a non-clinical setting, but are able to actually provide people with, you know, their self-proclaimed benefits that are actually, you know, this isn't about prescribing medication. It's not about taking people down a particular route to, you know, a psychiatric route to deal with these problems. You know, it's actually about, here's a, you know, real world solution in which you can adopt, and it seemingly having really positive benefits. That must be massively rewarding to hear that kind of feedback.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's funny because when you get feedback from the users, it's like really heartwarming, and you can read the Trustpilot reviews. Honestly, it's probably the best place to get this. Like, people use words like life changing, and, you know, Flown has changed my life, or I got this much done. And it's like really nice as the person building the platform to get that feedback. I mean, obviously there's going to be the other side of there's a bug here and all this stuff, right? That always happens in tech inevitably. But the feedback that you are changing people's lives, even though it might be like only a fraction of the population, is great, and it's nice to hear. Again, I can't say that I have or don't have ADHD. I don't know. Also, a lot of evidence that we have is anecdotal in the sense that it's feedback from users, but a lot of people who say they identify with having ADHD do also claim that, you know, they focused better or they got more done or whatnot. So, you know, we could pull some examples on Trustpilot very easily.
Yeah.
I don't know what rating we've got now, but it's in the 4.9 or something like that. It's like quite high. And some of the bad reviews, I know exactly the ins and outs of what happened there. Yeah. So, you know, I think, yeah, it's beneficial generally, and yeah, it's just this idea of ADHD like can be a good thing. It's just that you need to channel it in the right way. Like, we have some people in the team that are experts at this, and ADHD coaches that can speak to this particular topic way more than I can. But we found that certain, you know, we have an ADHD mastery course that we sell to individuals, so you don't even need to sign up to Flown to actually join it. And it's just about, I think, the way that Kit, who's my teammate that runs it, positions it, and she has ADHD, is like, you know, this is a game that you need to beat, and here's like the big monster that's your ADHD, and how do you tame that, basically. So it's a really interesting angle, and I think she does a great job of putting infographics and the cool stuff around it. Yeah, she's the one who came up with a neurospicy term, in fact.
Okay.
So yeah, like there's a very interesting angle there. I think there's definitely, and yeah, like you said, it's a non-pharmacological solution. Like, I can't speak to the wider population. I'll tell you about friends that I have that have severe ADHD. And all I've seen is when they take these meds, you know, be Ritalin or Adderall or one of these, like, these are strong amphetamines. I mean, if you study pharmacology, you know exactly what that is. And yeah, I've seen it, you know, they are sort of more focused, but overall it's ruining their life over time. Like, at least that's what I've observed with my friends. It's like, you know, you become numb, you become a bit more like, you know, less, your dopamine starts going a bit weird. Like, you're less sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, inclined to act in certain things. And it helps you focus, and you feel like a bit numb. And yeah, none of them, from what I spoke to them, say, yeah, this has fixed me or cured my issue. I can't say that deep work will either, but at least to me, it feels like one is you're taking a drug, the other is you're not actually doing anything beyond sitting at a computer screen, which you will be doing in your day anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, you're not claiming to cure a particular, you know, condition. It's basically a way of taking steps in the right direction towards something. And I love one of the points that you made earlier, which is about, you know, the whole concept of and I guess we could talk about this a bit more now, but work-life balance, and this isn't a tool to make you work longer hours, it's a tool to make you work smarter, to give you more time back in your day, right? Which I guess we could all do with. And I think, you know, we've all been guilty, and I know I have in the past from my previous career of, you know, working in a full-time corporate job where, you know, I wasn't happy. I didn't really enjoy the day-to-day work. I knew I was going to be in the office for a set amount of time every day, like hugely demotivated. To be honest, depressed, I guess, is about the best way I could describe it, with the state of my life at that time. And I sort of fast forward to where I am now, you know, 6 years down the line as having started True North of my own business. Do I work longer? I don't know, maybe. Do I work harder? Definitely. But it's the freedom, the control element of doing it, because, you know, when I'm working really hard. When I'm not, I'm trying to, you know, take that time out, spend it with the kids or whatever. And I think any platform out there that can genuinely give people that productivity with a view to giving them more free time to spend on other things, I think can only be, you know, a massively positive thing. But interested to get your take on, I guess, the whole shift, I suppose, because there's this sort of platform that we're seeing now. I think it feels like a really great time for you know, a platform like Flown to be coming through, obviously in a post-pandemic world where the world is taking, you know, steps to becoming more of a remote digital sort of place. It feels like this sort of solution, you know, would it have necessarily existed in a pre-pandemic world? It probably would have, but would have been as readily adopted or accepted? You know, maybe not. So I love the fact that this kind of you know, conversation is happening. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole productivity versus time spent doing a job and, you know, work-life balance? What are your thoughts on that?
So yeah, like when you said that in a post-pandemic world, it almost sounded like our pitch from from our CEO. It's like, you know, there's a part there which is like, which I think she's kind of nailed that when she says like, yeah, you know, in the world where we're moving towards AI and AI first, is like, it's never been so important to amplify what we are as humans, and you don't want to lose that.
Totally.
And part of the philosophy is in it, that's in it is this, and the work-life balance part. I mean, yeah, it's, if you produce more in less time, you have more time back. And then if you're, you know, the remote work, also the flexibility of it, you know, being able, like today, I had a day where I've gone out and done stuff. I've worked a bit. Now I'm here. I'm going to work later, but it doesn't feel like I've been grinding all day. If
Yeah.
that makes sense, right?
Totally. Totally.
It's you're taking time for some stuff, and then you take breaks. I do a lot of NSDR, what you call it's non-sleep deep rest. It's basically like a micro nap where you kind of mess around with your breathing a little bit to relax, 10, 20 minutes sometimes. And most of my day, I listen to my body. It's like, am I tired and not producing? I'm just going to rest for 10 minutes and then I'll come back, recharge. Like, what's the point of me hammering a task that, you know, maybe it has an immediate deadline, but it's, you know, if I've organized myself well, it's never that urgent. Like, I can just take my time to stop, take a break, come back. I'll be more productive then.
Yeah.
And when it comes to work-life balance, I mean, yeah, when you feel good about your work, you feel good about your life, like it just kind of reverberates in everything you do. So you go from, you know, you feel better about yourself, and you go and exercise, you feel better about that exercise. It's like, it all ties in together, right? Like you're saying, if you're depressed at your job, it's probably going to affect your personal life in some respects. Most likely it is going to be affecting your personal life, whether it's time with family that you're not spending because you're working or grinding away hours that, you know, especially for me, I'd feel like terrible doing that in a job that I feel I'm where I'm just a cog, right? Going back to why I like working in startups, is I feel I can make an impact.
Yeah.
Like I feel that my work makes a difference, right? And that to me is more valuable than getting paid like a lot of cash somewhere. So yeah, I'd say, I guess going back to work-life balance, what else could we add there? A lot of ideas.
Well, I think you've raised a lot of really good ideas there. I mean, yeah, the productivity piece versus time spent doing a job, I think is you know, very, very important. And the NSDR stuff that you're talking about there, I think that, I suppose there's two things that occurred to me when you talked about that. One is there's, I suppose, a level of self-awareness that people have to work in that way, where we are actually listening to our body, and it's sort of moving away from that, I suppose, where we're all a bit preconditioned from school and probably the world of work, where it's like, I don't really care how you feel, get the job done. Yeah, I think we're entering into this kind of world now where, yeah, people are starting to wake up a little bit more and probably respect themselves a bit more in terms of actually listening to themselves and listening to their bodies, how they feel, and ultimately doing something to manage their state. And I suppose the other piece is having, you know, I suppose is where something like Flown also comes in, is having the knowledge and access to the right tools and techniques that can allow you to do that, right? In terms of, like you said there, just even knowing how to concentrate on your breathing for 20 minutes to, regenerate yourself and make yourself feel a bit more energetic. And it's that kind of thing that I think a lot of people probably still, and myself included to a degree, even though I'm kind of in control of my own diary, probably sometimes go along on autopilot for the day and then don't actually, and then you kind of 2 days in, you're like, actually I'm knackered and I need to lie in today.
Take a break. Yeah, for sure. Taking a break is important. Again, I feel like everybody has got to find what works for them ultimately, right? This in particular works for me. Do I think it's good and recommended? Yes. Can I claim that it works for you? No. But ultimately, when it comes to what you mentioned about self-awareness, it's about, ultimately to me, self-awareness is being really honest with yourself and like literally not bullshitting yourself into, I'm this person that does all this work. It's like, it's okay if you're tired. Like, it's okay if you're not doing 8 hours of work today. It's like, there are situations and I've done it before, when you have big projects and you there's a week where you have to get something out, you need that extra work. Like maybe then it's, it makes sense for you to have that lifestyle while you're working super hard for a bit on something.
Yeah.
And I think there's obviously arguments for why you should do that, but ultimately doing this on a sustained period of time, what you're going to find yourself in is burnout, which is what I found myself at some point in COVID.
Yeah.
And it's literally where you're going to end up. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to hate your job, even though like it's all in your head. Ultimately, like you're just kind of fighting with yourself and, neuroticism and feeding yourself the narrative that you don't like it. But ultimately what you are is super tired because you're not taking any time to yourself at all. And yeah, when it comes to productivity, I think productivity is almost the wrong word, because it implies that you're always doing stuff, when in fact, like not doing things is also just as important as doing them.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point.
And it's also that sentence of, don't do today what you won't recover from tomorrow. Like, give you an example. I had like a pretty big day on Tuesday of stuff to do, like generally things that I did in the day, not necessarily work. And I didn't actually nap that day in the day. And like I woke up, no, sorry, it was on Monday, and I woke up on Tuesday, like way more tired than usual. I was like, God damn, like I definitely pushed myself a bit too much yesterday. Like, I mean, being honest with myself. And what I did is like, I woke up, I got out of bed at like 9 and I did 2 small naps before 10 for my meeting, because I was like, I can't hack this right now. There's no point. I'm just sitting here. My eyes are like, I feel him. You felt this before, right? In the back of your eyes, you feel sort of like fatigue to you. And yeah, sometimes you can push through it.
Yeah.
Be it by motivation or energy, and you'll see a lot of this hustle culture being there. Yeah, you got to be motivated and do this. And it's like, but most times, honestly, 10 minutes is nothing.
No.
For taking a break, closing your eyes, getting inputs out of it. And I'm saying close your eyes because that works for me, but go out, look at some view, walk, go do the dishes, whatever, like put some laundry in, whatever it is that you can do to just take your mind and your eyes off the screen.
Yeah.
And go back to, and then go back eventually when you feel
like you say, it's just about doing what you need to do to get yourself back into state of flow, isn't it? Because I guess the converse of that, which I personally have definitely suffered with, and I'm sure a lot of other people have as well, is like you're constantly stuck in this state of almost like paralysis and procrastination, where you think you're busy,
yes,
but actually you're not really getting a lot done because you're kind of not in the right mindset to actually be productive. But then you kind of enter into this self-fulfilling, spiral of decline where you feel guilty because you think, oh, I need a break, but actually it's probably the best thing to do. Reset yourself, come back. And so I think the whole way that we recognize our kind of mental levels and levels of engagement and that kind of thing is definitely a new sort of thing for a lot of people. But I also really like the point you made there about productivity as well, because I mean, I think there is this kind of myth really that work tasks and work responsibilities should eclipse all other areas of your life, and you're only actually being productive if you're just spending time on work. And we've all, I'm sure, seen the miserable millionaire that's worked every hour that God sends and made a load of money, but they're absolutely miserable. I see them all the time in my local village back at home. For some reason, it's a village in Leicestershire where there's a pretty high concentration of very rich people, and quite a lot of them are like entrepreneurs, things they've done themselves, but a lot of them aren't happy. Like, and it's like a walking, talking advert to me very often, even like as an entrepreneur, to ensure that I've got more of a work-life balance moving forward, because I don't want to get to the end of my, I think sustainability is the word that I try and use. Like, I think you used it earlier, but I totally agree with that. So whatever you do, try and do it in a sustainable fashion, because nobody wins when you approach burnout. And I kind of had a really wake up moment a couple of days ago, actually, because I was looking at a few photos of myself when I left my previous company, and I literally looked like half dead. like I look like a physically different person, and I wasn't even aware of it at the time. But it's like, I mean, it's been like 6 years ago now. But I look back and I'm like, Jesus, that is like a different person, and I feel innately happier now. But I didn't realize how much I looked different as well, and it was like the stress and the pressure, you know, was just draining me visibly, and you know, that kind of was a real wake up moment to me of, you know, I feel the way I'm doing my job now. You know, of course, there's times when, you know, things go wrong and you get blindsided and lots of stressful situations. But, you know, I never feel like I have to take a long extended break because, you know, I'm just happier about the way I'm doing my job day to day.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret there that if you're whatever you're feeling in your mind is going to reflect in your body, and whatever you're doing to your body is going to reflect in your mind, right?
Yeah.
It's, what do you call it? That's the Latin one, mens sana in corpore sano, right? Ultimately that's true, I think, for everybody. Going back to the productivity point, it's like, you know, imagine you work 10 hours a day and I work 6 hours a day. It may be that you're happy working, and fair enough, good for you. Like, that's not an audience necessarily that I like to reach, but if you're happy, then great. Like, nothing to say to you. If you're happy, you're working, grinding away, like, great. But most times what you'll find is, like you're saying, people who are doing this sustained behavior over time will find that they're not happy. And like, my question is, would you rather work 10 hours and get a lot done, or work 6 hours and get almost just as much done, but suddenly you've got 4 hours back to do whatever else?
Yeah.
And, you know, that can be exercise, like taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, spending time with your friends, whatever it is that you're into, like investing time in your hobbies. Like, it's easy. It's a clear choice to me. And ultimately it's the question to all these people that make a lot of cash is like, are you happy? If you find that the answer is no, then why are you doing this to yourself? Like, that's I'm not going to tell you do X, Y, Z. I'm just going to ask you, why are you doing this, and find out why you're doing that and tell me after if you want, but don't either if you don't. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's finding out of, and you know, like you say, you know, you look at yourself and you can see these things. It's like in your eyes, you retire, the stress, like cortisol levels go up, all this stuff. It's not good for you.
No.
And a lot of that, you know, I've seen, you know, it's why, you know, sometimes my family's that's from a small village in Spain. I go out there and, like, you know, my cousins and, like, you know, people that have had like the privilege to go into university, and they work the jobs there. Nobody's doing this grind hustle culture at all. And people are just way happier than when I walk into the city here and I'm in the tube in the morning and I'm kind of like seeing all these people. It's like, everybody looks so miserable.
I know, mate.
Work. It's like,
Yeah.
what's the point, guys? Like, come on, you know, you could be having actual fun doing stuff.
Yeah.
And I understand sometimes it's a bit unfair to say that, because, you know, sometimes you don't have a choice. You need to get a job in a certain thing to survive. Like, I'm in a lucky position that, you know, I've been able to go, you know, have education and go to university and get a job and do things in life that allow me to have space to think and space to you know, to live the life I want. It's not the case for everybody, but I think there's an audience here for sure that has this opportunity and has had these opportunities. They're just not taking them. They're just like losing themselves in the grind or chasing after money, which fair enough if you want, but I guarantee that you're going to look at yourself in a few years later and wonder, what the hell have I been doing with my life?
Yeah.
It's like, I've met people that, you know, they talk about going to New York, Manhattan, all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but what do you do here? It's like, you wake up, you go to work, you go home, you go to bed. Like, what's the point in living in the city? Like, you're not even enjoying it. So my question to you is like, why? And is there an alternative?
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's something that I'm acutely aware of, because I spend literally all day, every day talking to people about their career choices and that kind of thing. And I do try and make our consultation with people now a lot more holistic around, it's not just about, right, you're on 60k now and how do we get you to 70k in the next job? You know, if we, it might sound cheesy, but genuinely kind of the consultancy that we try and give our candidates now is, if we've got somebody that comes to us to get 2 offers on the table, you know, the money, okay, it's an aspect, of course, it's an element of it, but a lot of the questions that we'll ask to try and coax the right decision is ultimately about, you know, like I said, what is going to be most fulfilling, what's going to move you closer towards your, you know, your kind of sustainable goals. Because, you know, you could take this job over here, and we've seen a lot of these situations backfire where people leave one job and they get a gargantuan pay rise to go to another company, and then literally you come back to us like a year down the line to go, yeah, that was the wrong call, and I definitely don't want to be doing that anymore. So yeah, you know, I think it's all about doing, I mean, our mission as a business is to help people be happy at work, right? Because I think, to your point, yes, I totally understand when people get, you know, maybe further into their lives and mortgages and kids and all that kind of stuff, there's a huge amount of fiscal responsibility on these people, absolutely. But I also think there's a lot of people out there, and myself included for quite a long time, where you're just subscribing to societal norms without really questioning what other alternatives exist out there. And you do have the control, you do have the power to change. All right, yeah, it might take a sideways step in terms of earnings or even a step down, but fundamentally it goes back to the sustainability element, doesn't it? If your family are going to see you as a lot happier person for, you know, the time you're around them, and, you know, you're not going to die of a heart attack or whatever, then surely that's a bigger positive, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, if you ask, someone who finds himself in that situation, let's say, where you suddenly out of all this stress, you get a really bad illness. Like, if you ask them, would you have changed anything from what you've done before? I reckon the most likely answer is yes. Of course, I would have changed it. I wouldn't have stressed myself out if I knew that this was going to happen. It's the kind of thing where, if I give you £1 million today, but you're not around tomorrow, would you take it? It's like, no. Like, basically, what you're telling me is being alive tomorrow is worth £1 million to you, almost, pretty much, right? Like, and I think ultimately it's like knowing that you have enough is a really important thing. Like, knowing that, you are enough as a person is another story, but that you have enough for yourself, and what that means to you, like finding that, and then, you can chase that for a bit, but eventually, that doesn't need to be millionaire yachts, whatever it is, that people idolize now. I feel like there's a lot of this culture of idolizing this kind of character, and without realizing how toxic this kind of character actually is for society.
God,
And back to your point about, like, I think it's really interesting what you're doing with the recruitment point, because generally I think recruiters get a bad rep in a lot of things. So I think it's very interesting that you look at it in again, the holistic view of things. It's like, things are not as clear cut as they seem. There's a lot more to a thing than meets the eye every time. So approaching it from that angle and looking at all the possible things is like, you will find that if you're happier, your performance is going to be better. That probably will actually land you a better job.
Totally.
Like, so there's something to be said there. And it's good. It's kind of refreshing to meet someone like you that's actually like,
I could refresh you.
Looking at candidates and people as people rather than looking at them as just, a commission you're going to get at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's also part of the philosophy at Flung. We want to be as human as we can. Like, these are people that we're working with all their good things and their bad things. Like, and how do we navigate this world? And the world of business is hard. Like, sometimes you do have to make tough decisions as a business, and it never feels good. And there is that part of it, obviously. But, like, as much as possible, I'd like to say that we're a company that try to have our users in the interests of our users, their best interest in our minds, right? And in what we do, basically, in the decisions we make.
And fundamentally, I think that's really, when you distill it down, the most important thing in any business is that the customer feels like the service actually cares about them. Really, that sounds quite an obvious thing, but I do think in the businesses that I see, they get the culture bit right. They just focus on their customers. They focus on the customers' problems and actually genuinely consulting, helping, do what they can to truly solve those problems. Rather than thinking, well, I'll solve this problem because it's going to make money in the short term. It's actually looking at it as the longer term. And I think people do have a slightly different relationship with their work now in this post-pandemic world that we're talking about than maybe where we were 10 years ago, because I think everybody was sleepwalking, or not everybody, a lot of people were sleepwalking, whereas I think the pandemic acutely, it woke a lot of people up to, hang on a minute, life is quite short. And the conversations we're having with a lot of candidates now, maybe 10 years ago it was like, well, what's the latest version of the technology they're working with, or how much money they're paying, versus now a lot of the conversations are more innate around what's the mission of the business, what's their culture like, how do they treat people, that kind of stuff, which I think is only a very positive thing, right? It means that a lot of the better companies are getting the better people.
Definitely. Like, and it's the kind of thing where often company values are a little bit like this kind of thing that companies like plaster on a wall. But it's like, honestly, Flown is the first time where one of the things that I enjoy is that I get to use the product that I built. That's an aside here, but the culture wise, there's an interesting part. We have, like, I should remember all the values off the top of my head, but one of them is smell a rose, like, every day. So, like, we actually have a channel on Slack, which is smell a rose, where people share, like, I don't use social media, so it's a bit sad, but it's become my sort of, I sometimes share photos of stuff I've done, or I've been to this place, or here's a nice view, or here's something nice that happened in my day. And smell a rose can be for anything like that, right? So people, the team, we're a small team again, but people share this kind of stuff. Then we have, like, another, so the value is every day we smell a rose, we scream Eureka, and we belly laugh, right? So those three things go together. The channels, there's a channel for each. The sort of Eureka channel has changed a little bit, and now we have this one called Shoot the Shit, which is just like, just talk about anything you want. And then we have one called Let It Vent, which is like, just, if you got a complaint, just raise it there, and, we'll laugh about it. in a good way, laugh at you, but and I feel like these are healthy values that I've actually, I've incorporated into my own sort of personal mental health thing. Like smell a rose is something I try to do every day. Like think about something that's smell a rose worthy in my day. It's like last night I had a really nice dinner with my wife's family. Example, like something like that.
Yeah.
Similar to a gratitude, but a bit more concrete, I guess. I don't know. Gratitude is just as good, to be honest. And then other values that we have is around is celebrating outcomes but appreciating effort. I think the other one is saying it straight and taking it well. I think those are important business values, but I think at the human side, there's definitely loads of things that kudos to the team for having like built that. When I joined, this was already like in there, and it's felt like way better than other values like grit or I don't know, other things that I've had, but like this kind of be productive or like, I don't know, no ego kind of vibe. So it's like, when you hear no ego, for me, it's like, okay, this is the most egotistical value of the box. Like, it's, come on, what are we saying?
Everything you said there, it kind of, to put a wrap around it would be, I think, just people being honest and genuine and authentic. And I think that is, again, a sign of a really strong culture. People can just say something like without fear of it being either mocked or spurned or whatever it is. And I think just being able to have those channels where people can feel like they can contribute, and that's a sign to me of a really healthy culture. Like
I actually have to say, like I've built really like strong connections, like and friendships with people that look, even before I met them in person ever. Like it's and some of my colleagues I've only met like twice maybe in person, and somehow you feel because everybody's like very vulnerable and open to talk about what's going on in their life, and like and the environment's like very non-judgmental. It's easy for you to open up and have that connection, even though you're in a remote place. Obviously, when you're in person, there is way deeper things, and that goes back to biology that happen between you and the other person. But I think there are ways to make it better in the remote world, basically. In this new environment, like you say, it's the post-pandemic. People are coming onto this, and again, like back to what you're saying, is you only get one shot at life. I mean, whatever beliefs you have, this is it. Like if you squander this one, that's it. Like there's nothing else. So like one truth I can get behind is you're gonna die one day. That's it. So I think there's making the most of it and enjoying it as much as you can. If you have the luxury of being able to enjoy it, you should. Some people unfortunately don't get that luxury in their life. So yeah.
Very true. Well, look, Miguel, really enjoyed the chat today. I think you've hit on some really important points, and what I love about it is we haven't necessarily focused a huge amount on the technology, because I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about isn't necessarily that relevant to the technology, but I think tackling some bigger conversations. But no, really appreciate your perspective and your input, and I like to draw to a close every episode with the same question, if you're care to indulge me, which is, what would you say is your one favorite piece of advice that you've received throughout your career? It could be from a personal setting or a career setting, but just something that sticks with you through the journey that you would pass on.
I'm trying to look for the smart answer, but I'll tell you the first one that came to mind is like under promise and over deliver. That's worked out really well, actually. Nice. When it comes to estimating. It's always a hard thing in tech, and I know we didn't talk about the tech too much, but Flown ultimately is not one of these companies where the tech is like you're building something, a groundbreaking algorithm. So yeah, that one has been quite useful to me in terms of, people are always happily surprised afterwards when your estimates are really long, because, estimating is one of the hardest things out there, scoping projects and deciding, how much work you're going to put in and how long it takes.
Yeah.
It's a trial and error thing. I've made plenty of mistakes myself. So
that's nice.
Eventually you find one of those. And this, I think, is from one of the CTOs, to give him the credit. There was a phone before me.
Yeah, I think it's a great piece of advice, and it's something that comes, I think, with more experience. Obviously, when you're a bit younger and you try and eager to please, and you'll probably overpromise and underdeliver. But if you can do it the other way around, I totally agree. And it's the same thing in recruitment as well. I always try and be very upfront and honest with people that I don't want to be a yes man for the sake of it. If I feel like genuinely can't help or do something, I'll be honest about it, right? Because I don't want to waste my time or waste that person's time. But like I said, if it's something that you feel you can manage expectations and then only over deliver, then it's
I feel like under promise can have a bit of a negative connotation to it, but it's more like what you're saying. Be honest, be upfront about what you can and cannot do, and then go from there, basically.
I love it. Good man. Well, look, really enjoyed the chat, and wish you all the very best with Flown. Genuinely unique concept, and I very excited about it, and yeah, please do keep in touch. Let us know how you're getting on, and I'd love to have you back at some point in future and hear a bit more about your journey, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we're raising some money now, so if VCs are hearing this and you feel like investing in a business is actually making a difference, please. We're all
Absolutely.
ears. So yeah, thank you very much, Guy, for having me. It's been a good chat. I mean, it was already a good chat when we met at first on Zoom. So yeah, today is just confirmation of that.